Welcome, and I'm so glad to see that some of you are enjoying this on Facebook. And I really hope this is something that you find stimulating and informative and interesting, despite sometimes I obviously am challenged myself, but this is it's a work in progress, and the idea is to be challenged and to try to grow in it. So Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu la'asok b'divrei Torah.
Amen.
And here goes with the screen share. So we are on vaYetzei, and we have read the little passage, that famous passage where Jacob comes to rest and sees this ladder with the angels going up and coming down, and now he's arrived. He's actually just about to leave, I guess, is what we're saying. Vayisa Yaakov raglav. Literally, it means Jacob lifted up his feet, something like that. Vayelech, and he went artsa v'nei kedem, to the land of the sons of the east. I'm translating that as literally as I can. So, what do we mean lifted up his feet? So Rashi's going to deal with that. Vayisa Yaakov raglav, right? Jacob lifted up his feet. Mi shenit baser besora tova, when he was given these good tidings, shehuftach b'shmira, that he was reassured that he was going to be guarded by God, because of course one of the big reasons for his immediate departure from Beersheba was because Esau was going to kill him, and he was so worried about that. He was worried about where he was going. Would God in fact protect him? And he was given this reassurance at this vision he had. At any rate, when he received these good tidings, Nasa libo et raglav, his heart lifted or encouraged his feet. And it was very easy for him to go now. Very easy. He became very light-footed. So, Kach Meforesh b'Bereshit Rabbah, and Rashi tells us that's what's stated in Bereshit Rabbah. So there's a little bit of there's something left out, right? That the Nasa et Raglav really is referring to how he was moved to do that. Vayar, and he beheld, v'hinei be'er basadeh, and here there was a well in the field. V'hinei sham shlosha edrei tzon, and behold, there were 3 flocks of sheep, ruftzim aleha, crouching next to it. Ki, why? Because min habe'er hahi, from that particular well, yashku ha'adarim, they would water the flocks. V'ha'evan, but the stone, gdola al pi habe'er, was very great. There was a huge stone on the mouth of the well, right? They didn't want people stealing the water. We know that water was something that could cause a lot of commotion, a lot of anger and competition, all these good things, right? At any rate. So Rashi again, let's take a look here. Yashku hadarim, they would water the flocks, or they will water the flocks. The point is, it's in the it's in the future, and I'm trying to think the imperfect tense, uncompleted. Mashkim haroim et ha'adarim. That is to say, the shepherds water their flocks. Umikra diber belashon ktsara, and he says that the scriptural verse is abbreviated. It doesn't say about the. Sorry. about the shepherds. It doesn't mention them, but that's who we should understand were the ones who were watering the flocks. So onwards. So one thing just to tell you in passing that, when we come across these sort of details in the text, even though, I mean, it's a beautiful narrative detail, and we do need it. It's going to explain itself a little later and become significant. And yet I sometimes wonder if there is some symbolism involved. This water is such a symbolic, the idea of a well and the fact that it's life-giving and it assures life. And as Abba Eben mentions in his series called Civilization and the Jews, he basically says that civilization only became possible when people were able to develop a reliable source of water, because essentially the word civilization, I believe, means dwelling in cities, right? Life in cities. And cities are not possible unless there's a reliable water supply, which of course you'll allow me to preach for a second, we somewhat take for granted. At any rate, how significant water is and whether it has symbolic significance here. At any rate, v'ne'esfu shama kol ha'adarim, and they would gather there all the flocks, v'galalu et ha'evan, and they would roll the stone, me'al pi ha'be'er, from off the face of the well, v'hishku et hatzon, and they would water the sheep, v'heshivu et ha'evan, and they would replace the stone al pi ha'be'er, on the mouth of the well, limkoma, to its place. Lots of words here, actually, that don't necessarily seem necessary, that this could have been said perhaps in a more abbreviated way. But at any rate, Rashi's going to comment on a little bit, not necessarily on every single element of this. V'ne'esfu, right? And they gathered. Regilim hayu, it was their practice, right? They would often, right? They would routinely gather. Hayu le'asef lefi, they to gather together. The shepherds would all congregate together. Lefi shaita evangelah, because this stone, this rock, was so large and it needed a whole bunch of them to move this off the well. The Galalu, the Golalim. So, and again, this is in the perfect tense, right? That it's completed action. But Rashi tells us, the Golalim, they would roll it, right? Which is more imperfect. The Targumo or Meganderim, right? And the Targum, and I think the point here is that Meganderim is in an imperfect tense. Even though the Galalu is perfect, the Meganderin is in the imperfect tense. So now he goes on to say, Kol Lashon Hoveh, he says something that is in the present tense, something that is happening, right? Mishtaneh ledaber belashon atid. It changes to speak in the imperfect. Lashon atid would be future tense or the imperfect tense. Uvelashon avar, and also in the past tense. In other words, something that's happening is moving from the future to the present, or to the past, right? Lefi, and the reason is shekol davar hahoveh, he says, because anything that takes place in the present, tamid kvar haya, it's at a moment, right, at a point in time where it's in the past, va'atid liyot, and in the future. The present tense so swiftly moves from the future into the past. Veheshivu, right, and again, they would replace, they placed it back, Targumo umityavin. And let's take a look. Maybe it's a different pronunciation. I just want to let me find the place. Umitivin. Okay. So I believe it is that the word tuv tiv in Aramaic with a taf like that is the taf very often is a shin in Hebrew. So regardless, they would replace the stone on the mouth of the well. So, okay. So again, I think it's talking about the imperfect metivin would be imperfect, and the Hebrew, on the other hand, is perfect in the past tense.
So it's just like an aside, a narrative aside.
Yes,
This was what normally happens,
this is what normally happened. This was
Right.
their practice.
Right. Okay.
And in a sense, it wasn't happening at that moment. It is an
Right.
aside. I think you said that, Golda, that
Uh-huh.
it's an aside on the part of the text. And I think Rashi sort of wants us to realize that it isn't something that was actually taking place at that moment. Right. So anyway, Vayomer lahem Yaakov, and Jacob said to them, Achai, me'ayin atem. He said, my brothers, where are you from? Vayomru, and they said, Mecharan anachnu, we are from Haran, the place of Haran. No Rashi, I don't believe. Let's keep going. Vayomer lahem, and he said to them, Hayidatem et Lavan ben Nachor. Are you acquainted with Laban, the son of Nachor? Vayomru Yadanu. And they said, we are acquainted. We are acquainted. You know, it doesn't say anything here about it, but to know, oh gosh, how well do you know? Do we know? And when they said we know, does that mean they knew what a cheat he was? They're not saying it, but is the text sort of laughing a little bit here? Vayomer lahem hashalom lo. And so he said to them, literally it means, is he doing okay? Right? Is he at peace? Not the great peace, but are things okay with him? I believe is really what this means. Vayomru shalom. And they said, yeah, he's doing okay. V'hinei, and look, Rachel Bito, Rachel, his daughter, Ba'a, right? Or excuse me, Ba'a im Hatzon. She is coming with the sheep. By the way, the fact that she is a shepherdess is a source of surprise in some of the other commentaries. Okay, that because it was not woman's work, you might say, right? For a woman to have to go out and pasture sheep. Although I realize in perhaps romantic literature, the idea of the shepherdess is something that's treasured. At any rate, Rashi on this. So, ba'a, notice where I'm putting the accent, right? Im hatzon, with the flock, with the sheep. Hatam ba'alef. So Rashi says the accent is on the aleph. It's ba'a, right? The targumo atya. And so the targum, again, Rashi's commenting on the tense that the targum chooses to use, is coming, right? She comes. Verachel. Now, later on in verse 9, I'll show you it right now. Rashi's going to comment on it, right? Here, look at this. Verachel. Look where the accent is here. Ba'a. So the first time it says ba'a, and this is ba'a. Subtle difference, but a difference nevertheless. And here we go, right? Verachel ba'a. Hatam lamala bebeit. Rashi says the accent falls above, literally, on the bet. In other words, before the aleph, on the bet. The targumo atat. And the targum is sensitive to that. And I believe atat is in the perfect. If I'm not mistaken, right? And the reason why it's understood in the future is because of the vav, of the transversive vav. So that takes the imperfect and makes it perfect in biblical Hebrew. Harishon lashon osa, The first version, ba'a, is an action that is happening. She is acting. Va'sheni lashon asta. But the second example, ba'a, has the meaning of perfect. She did it, right? Osa, she is doing. Asta, she did. So Rashi's drilling down for us there. So his response, Jacob's response, Vayomer, Hain od hayom gadol. And he said, indeed, look, he said, we still have a lot of day. It's like midday. The day is great. There's still a lot left of the day. Lo eit he'asef hamikneh. This isn't the time to gather together the flock. Hashku hatzon. Okay, by all means, water the flock, water the sheep. Ulachu, but go and pasture them, right? Shepherd them. So, Hein od hayom gadol says, look, in fact, it's still like broad daylight. Lefi. So why would he say this, Rashi? Lefi, because Shira'aotam, he saw them, Rovtsim. Now, who the haim is, or them, or tam, is it referring to the sheep, that the sheep were laying down? Rovetz basically has to do with crouching. Does it have, okay? So maybe he is referring to the sheep here. I don't think he's talking about the shepherds, but he saw that the flocks were crouching down. I'm going to guess, I'm going to go out on the line. Kisavur, and so he was of the opinion, when Jacob saw the sheep crouching like that, sherotzim le'esof hamikneh habaita, that they were planning on gathering the flock to take it home, to return it back to the home. V'lo yir'u od, and they were not going to pasture them anymore. Amar lahem, and that's why he said to them, Hein od hayom gadol. That's why he said, look, he said, it's still broad daylight. Klamar, that is to say, im schirei yom atem, if you are day hire, if you're hired by day, lo shalamtim pulat hayom, you haven't paid for the labor, for the day labor. You're taking it easy here. You were paid to work the day, and you're not working the day. But if these cattle are yours, if this flock belongs to you, nevertheless, lo eit ha'asif. This isn't the time to gather hamikneh, the flock, etc. So that he was saying, either way, if you're hired to do this job, way too early if you're getting paid by the day, and if it is yours, well, you're not treating the animals the way they deserve to be treated. So, by the way, I wonder if this particular sentence is supposed to give us insight as to Jacob's proficiency at being a shepherd. Because later on, towards the end of this Sedra, we are going to be reading about a certain level of expertise that apparently he had. But they were very much involved in pasturing their sheep. Going on. Vayomru, so they responded. They said, Lo nuchal, we're not going to be able to leave where we are now. We're not going to be able to leave. Ad asher ye'asfu kol hadarim, until all the flocks are gathered together. V'galalu et ha'evan, and at that point we can roll the stone, me'al pi ha'be'er, from off the mouth of the well. V'hishkinu haston, and we'll be able to water the flock. So we're not just letting them lie around right now because we're planning on taking them back home. We're letting them lay down right now because we have to wait for the other shepherds to show up. That's why. Rashi, let's take a look and see. There we go. Lo nuchal. We aren't able, the hashkot, to water the fisha even gudla, simply because that stone is so large. The galalu, right? And galalu again is a perfect tense, but ze metugam vayin gadrun. So again, translated as the imperfect, and they will roll off. Lefi wa shehula shonatit, because in fact it is an imperfect sense. They will once all the other shepherds show up. So in Hebrew, it works in a different way than it does in Aramaic. Odona midaber imam. While he was speaking to them, Rachel ba'a im hatzon, and Rachel was coming with the sheep, asher lahavia, which belonged to her father, ki ro'ahi, because she was a shepherdess. He made her a shepherdess. Let's see, no Rashi on this. So onwards.
Rabbi, why
Yeah,
the vertical line in between?
you mean here?
Uh-huh.
I am not really certain. And possibly, I know there are vertical lines at times,
Yeah.
and maybe it has to tell you with the fact that this particular munach, that's that little backward
Yeah.
here, has to be, so very often you will find two munachim in front of a revia. That's the name of
Uh-huh.
this little trope, okay?
Right.
And the way you do that is la 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 la, that's the first munach.
Mm-hmm.
La 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 la. So la 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 is the second munach. Now the
Okay.
first munach usually comes with that line following it. Okay, so whether or not you have to sing this Berachel Baha, okay,
Yeah.
instead of Berachel Baha, that could be it.
Ah,
It is
okay.
a, may I call it, a semi-educated guess, but
Okay.
it's not uncommon.
At least it's trope related.
It is trope
Reading
related.
it's reading related
Yes,
as opposed
right.
to a yeah.
But
Okay.
I am absolutely willing to stand corrected, because, like,
Okay.
if they didn't have this little line there, it would be sung da da da. But this very
Mm-hmm.
often is the way it occurs before that second munach.
Gotcha.
All right.
Thank you.
So, I'm happy to try and answer that question. I do not claim full expertise at trope. Vaihi,
And I
and
will probably ask you again the next time.
well, maybe so, or maybe you'll ask someone else
Yeah.
who is more proficient at trope,
You
and
know,
tell you
Marvin
ahead of
Lerner.
time. Yes, yeah,
Marvin Lerner.
oh
Ooh,
yeah,
yeah.
by all means. Vaihi kasher ra'a Yaakov et Rachel, and so it was that when Jacob saw Rachel, Bat Lavan Achi Imo, the daughter of Laban, the brother of his mother, in other words, his cousin. Ve'etzon Lavan Achi Imo, and he saw the sheep of Laban, the brother of his mother. Vayigash Yaakov, Jacob went over, Vayagel et ha'even me'al piyam, and he removed, okay, the stone from off the mouth of the well. So, you know, this is amazing, right? All these shepherds had to wait to get together to move the stone. And here, Jacob was doing this by himself. Now, you can always say it's a story, or is it saying that the shepherds were looking for an excuse to take a break? Not sure. Again, I'd rather want to see a comment on it elsewhere. I do not consider myself an authority. It just is interesting. Okay. Vayashk et tzon Lavan, and he watered the sheep of Laban, Achi Imo, the brother of his mother. Let's take a look here. Vayigash Yaakov Vayagel. Jacob went over and he removed, right? Ka'adam shema'avir et hapkak. Well, he was like a person removing a cork, a stopper, me'al pitz lochit, from the mouth of a flask. That's how it looked. That's how this action of his. That's how difficult he made it look, right? Lo diacha. So for scripture to let you know, to inform you, shekocho gadol, that he was a very strong man, right? We wouldn't necessarily think that from the narrative up to this point, but the narrative is clarifying this. So, let's see, Vayef, and he, oops, let's see. I think that is actually the next verse. I don't think that's here. So let's keep going. Okay. All right. Vayishak. Now notice this, by the way. Vayishak Yaakov l'Rachel, and Jacob kissed Rachel. Vayisa et kolo, and he lifted up his voice. Vayef, and he cried. He was very emotional. This I can tell you. Please notice, this is pronounced Vayashk, and this because it's from a root Shin Kuf He, so it's Vayashk, and this is Vayishak because it's from a different root Nun Shim Kuf. Nashak is to kiss, Shaka is to water, lahashkot, right? In the Torah, this does not come with any vowels. And if you don't pronounce it correctly, if you reverse the pronunciation because they look absolutely identical, and whether or not this is a little bit of buried humor in the Torah, because I have heard people read this Vayishak and this as Vayash, and this means that Jacob kissed the sheep of Laban, and this means he watered Rachel. So you have to be very, very careful how you pronounce words in Hebrew. At any rate, we're going to do this right now. So Vayevk, and he bacha, from bacha, to cry, he wail. The fee, why? So why was he crying? The fee shetzipa baruch hakodesh, because he foresaw through the divine spirit she'ena nichneset imo likvura, that she would not be able to join him in burial. Rachel, in fact, is buried in Bethlehem, and Leah is buried with Jacob in the cave of Machpelah. And he knew they were not going to be together. This, again, very literary little piece here. Davar acher, another interpretation. The fi sheba beyadayim rekonot. Sheba, and the reason he was crying is because he came empty-handed. Amar, he thought. Eliezer Eved Avi, Eliezer, the servant of my father. And by the way, here we see that Eliezer is actually named as the servant who went back to Padan Aram to bring Rebecca back, right? But Eliezer, the servant of my father, okay, sorry, Eved Avi Abba Hayu. Okay, he, of course, he was the servant of his grandfather, of the father of my father. Hayu b'yadav nizamim. He was carrying nizim, I believe it's a nose ring, tzmidim, bracelets, umigdanot, gifts. Ani ein b'yadi klum. I don't have anything at all. I'm coming empty-handed. The fee. And why was he coming empty-handed? Wouldn't he have been ready to anticipate this? After all, the truth is that Rebecca and Isaac, one of the reasons they told him to flee to Haran is for the fact that they were sick at heart about the wives that Esau had chosen, and they didn't want Jacob to do the same thing. So, Lefi Shiradaf Eliphaz, and the reason is that Eliphaz ben Esav, son of Esau, pursued him. B'mitzvat aviv, after his father commanded him to do so. So Esau commanded Eliphaz to pursue Jacob, acharav, after him, lehorgo, in order to kill him. V'hesigu, and he actually reached him. He caught up with Jacob, Eliphaz, caught up with Jacob. Ulefi shegadal Eliphaz becheko shel Yitzchak, literally, and because Eliphaz grew up in the bosom of Isaac, right? That Isaac and Eliphaz were close, right? Mashach yado, he resisted, he took back his hand. He didn't kill him, is in other words what it means. That when he met up with Jacob, he didn't kill him. He went back on it. Amar le ma'aseh, he said to Jacob, Eliphaz said to Jacob, ma'aseh letzivui shel Abba, what am I going to do regarding the command of my father? I'm going against his command. Amar lo Yaakov, Jacob said to him, Tol ma shebiyadi, take everything that is in my hands, take all my possessions that I have with me right now. V'ha'ani chashuv kamet, and a poor person is considered as if he were deceased, because he has nothing with which to accomplish almost anything. So, and we'll leave that here. And I'll mark the place quickly. And
So in the grand timeline, do we know how old Jacob and Esau are at this point?
Yes, we are
I mean,
able.
Esau's old enough to have an old enough son to go chasing after him.
That's true. That's true. Yeah. In a previous section, we actually said how old Esau, Jacob. Of course, they were twins, right?
Yeah,
they were. So yeah,
okay. Well, there was a lineage thing or something.
There is.
Yeah.
Rashi sort of tells us how you figure it out, and I think he says that he's gonna explain that a little later on. But because we know that Joseph was 30, we know that Jacob worked for Laban for 20 years. That in that 20th year, when Joseph was, or in the 21st year when Joseph was born, that was when he decided to leave. That he wanted to go back. So we can kind of figure this stuff out. And Jacob tells Sarah how old he is when he comes up and meets with him. So I'm going to share here.
I mean, it's got to be. We're talking. Yes, definitely adults here. They are definitely adults.
Yes, for
and
sure.
Maybe Jacob liked the fact of having grandchildren around him. I mean, no, I mean,
Abraham,
Isaac, and Abraham, for that matter.
Right. So
Isaac liked having grandchildren around.
So, as a matter of fact, Abraham, his death is marked at the moment when Esau is making lentil soup. That
right.
The idea is that was the day of Abraham's burial. So something like that.
Yeah. It talks about that's because that's something you eat when you're
exactly. It's mourner's
food.
Mourner's food.
Morning or something.
Right. Okay.
That and eggs.
Yes, exactly. Hard-boiled eggs. Yes.
Yes.
Okay. We're on.